Alright guys, the WRX transmission could be a lot better. As you can see, there is a lot of slop here for first and second gear. What we want is that the slop to be tight, about as good as third and fourth gear. As you can see, very minimal. Fifth and sixth gear actually does have a stop from the factory, so it is tighter, but we're going to adjust it just slightly so that it's a little bit better. And this is what we'll end up with, very minimal slop. There's a few different shift stops out there, but I prefer the COBB version because it basically mirrors the OEM version. It is made out of plastic, so it has a little bit of dampening versus the metal shift stops. And I've heard of rubbing issues with the metal versions of these shift stops. To reduce the chance of dropping the thin nut down into the shift lever area, I am going to pre-install the two thin nuts onto the two studs. What's also nice about a COBB shift stop is that it allows you to adjust the first and second gear stop separately from the fifth and sixth gear OEM stops. The shift stop makes you adjust both of them together, which can be quite a pain to get both of them just right at the same time. For this, we'll need a 10mm deep socket along with a ratchet. Obviously, I'm using a very long extension here, but part of it is so that it's easier for you guys to see. And before you do this, we need to make sure the car is in relatively level ground and the parking brake is on. We'll need to first remove the shift knob by rotating it counterclockwise. To remove the shift boot, we'll need to grab the side and pull it straight up. It's just push clips that's holding it down. We'll need to remove the boot from the collar. The COBB instruction says to mark the location of the OEM shift stop on the right side. It also acts as the anti-reverse shift stop. Here I'm just marking it basically to the middle of the original bolt, but I feel like this wasn't really necessary. And here you can see how the OEM shift stop works. The shift lever basically just hits against the side of it, and lifting up on the anti-reverse mechanism allows you to go past it and shift into reverse. Next, we'll install the stud along with a thin nut that we already pre-installed. Obviously, be careful not to drop anything down into the shift lever cavity. Once the stud is all the way at the bottom, we'll back the stud off about one full turn. And then we'll hold the stud still while we tighten the small nut. That way the stud will not rotate with it. Now I am going to go ahead and tighten down the small nut. COBB mentions 4 to 5 foot-pounds of torque, which is not a lot, so don't go crazy on it. As you can see, by doing only one side at a time, I am able to maintain the original OEM shift stop location. Once the other side is tightened, I can go ahead and remove the other bolt. Again, as you remove these bolts, be careful not to drop anything down there. And we'll repeat the same process to install the stud with the thin nut already pre-installed. And we'll do the same thing by backing it off about a full turn and then hold the stud while we screw down the nut. Here I want my 5th and 6th gear to be just a tad tighter, so I am loosening both of these small nuts so that I can adjust the 5th and 6th gear stop. This whole process just takes a bit of trial and error. You basically want it about as tight as 3rd and 4th gear. COBB mentions about a thickness of a zip tie, which is, I say, about 1/16 of an inch. If you have it too loose, then obviously you will feel some slop. But then if it's too tight, then you might have some issue getting into gears. Once you get it to where you like it, obviously you need to make sure you tighten down the 2 nuts. Next, we can install the COBB shift stop on top. Next, we need to install these washers that are shaped like a cone. Basically, you need to make sure the pointier part at the middle is facing up. I guess another way of explaining it is the convex side is up and the concave side is down. We'll follow the same process as earlier. Just make sure we're tight enough while we still can get into 1st and 2nd gears. And again, basically the rule of thumb is try to get it as tight as 3rd and 4th gear, or just a tiny bit tighter if you prefer. Once good, we can go ahead and tighten down these 2 larger nuts. Obviously, make sure you can still get into gears. And again, it's only 4 to 5 foot-pounds of torque. So torque is simply the amount of force applied at a distance. So the way you can imagine 5 foot-pounds of torque is, say if your ratchet is 1 foot long, it would be applying 5 pounds at the very end of the ratchet. That will equate to 5 foot-pounds of torque. Obviously, before we put everything back on, you do want to make sure you go through all the gears and make sure you can get in all the gears and there's no issues and that it is tight enough to like how you wanted it. Alright, now we can put the shift boot cover back on. There are these tabs that you will need to slide in first. And of course, we'll need to slide the boot onto the collar. Once lined up, everything will just snap back in with a little bit of pressure. And now we can put the shift knob back on, and as you can see, I upgraded the shift knob also in the process. And again, this is the before. Lots of slop in first gear. Same way for second gear. And fifth and sixth gear wasn't too bad, but we also tightened it up a tiny bit. Alright, and first gear, obviously a lot tighter. So much better. Quite similar to third and fourth gear. And of course, we also tighten up the fifth and sixth gear. Fifth gear is actually a little bit too tight, but after I tried a few more times, it actually loosened up a tiny bit. So it's just about perfect now. Alright guys, if this video is helpful to you, please give me a thumbs up, hit the like and subscribe button. Got a lot more VBWX videos coming up for you guys. Take care.